All right, so I want to talk about something. I was listening to somebody's channel, and this comes up a lot from so called black people who wants to embrace the struggle. They never want to be free because anybody as a spirit or a soul who wants to be free would never continue to say, oh, we still ain't free. We still ain't free. And so here's my thing. I want to talk about releasing blackness. Because these people will look at a white person, a person who appears to be white on the outside, and consider them to be free. You will look at I would say a European Hispanic. I'm gonna say European Hispanic, not necessarily what you call Afro Latino, because so-called black people want to call them, say that they're not free too. But you will look at a Chinese person or anybody who have the more of the European or fair skin complexion. They're considered to be free to dark skinned people. When I say dark skin, I mostly mean so called black people in the United States of America mostly. Uh, with anybody who has a complexion other than dark is considered free. And for the most part, anybody with a dark complexion is considered not free. But not everybody with a dark complexion feels that way. So I can talk to an African and they might not feel that way. They might not share those sentiments. I can talk to somebody from say Zimbabwe that's dark skinned. They might not share those sentiments. So it's not just people with dark skin who feel that way. It's people who like to identify with the struggle, specifically in the United States of America. Not to say that it could be people worldwide who have a slave type of mentality. They do, but the thing is there is an expectation if you are a brown skinned person within the United States of America, that society has identified you as a black American. There's an expectation that you are not supposed to see yourself as free. You are not supposed to know that you are free. Okay? You're not supposed to know you're free. Especially if you identify as a black American. I mean, because a lot of so called black Americans like to feel like all dark skinned people, there's a problem where all dark skinned people around the world have a struggle. But there's not an expectation for all dark skinned people around the world to feel like they are not free. So you can have a person who come from different parts of Africa, Mexico, even in Jamaica, and they can say, well, I feel like I'm free. And that would be okay to a lot of black Americans because they are not from here. But it seems like if you're from here, you're supposed to feel like you are still in slavery. You're not supposed to know that you're free. And that's what I want to talk about, releasing blackness. That's what I want to talk about, releasing blackness. Because being free is a state of mind. I know there's a physical slavery and all that stuff. But the physical slavery is a result of something that already occurred in a non-physical realm. Okay? The physical slavery is something that, oh, by the way, other people have been slaves too, besides dark-skinned people. And there's been many cases where dark-skinned people have enslaved Europeans. I don't know why that seems like that subject will never be touched. And you will not hear a lot of Europeans talk about it because they don't want to identify with the struggle. Even though they know what the truth is, they don't want to tell that history because They don't want to keep reliving something like that over and over again, the way so-called black people want to keep reliving a story that may or may not even be true, like the Atlantic slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, and the way that history was told might not even be correct, but you have a group of people that, regardless, they want to hold on to the story because they want to hold on to struggle. Because you have that story that's true for a lot of other people, but they don't want to hold on to it and relive it the way that black Americans want to relive a story that might not even apply to them. That's why I'm saying release blackness. Because even if those stories are true, that doesn't mean you have to keep reliving it. See, here's the issue that I have. They keep saying, always remember your history, always remember your history. That's fine, but then when you want to say, always remember your history, you can't turn around and say, let go. Like, that doesn't work out. You don't tell me to hold on to a slavery story because it's your history. It's supposed to be our history. I don't claim it. I'm just saying what they say. It's supposed to be our history, so you're never supposed to forget. But then you get molested as a child, for instance, just for example, because it's a common one. You get raped. You get molested. You say, let it go. Let it go. Let go what they did to you. Let it go. You can't hold on to the hurt. You can't hold on to the hurt. It will eat you up from the insides. You might get swallowed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was just pushing its way through. You get swallowed up. I'm sorry. I had to say that. Let me stop laughing. Somebody's struggle is no laughing matter. But, okay, let me let that go. Let me stop laughing. It's like, when I started showing the hypocrisy of a lot of so-called black people, when they say, you gotta let it go, baby. You gotta let it go. It will eat you from the inside. You get swallowed. And I didn't even listen to that sermon by T.D. Jakes. I just see the memes of people laughing at him. I did not listen to that sermon. But it's just, this is what's happening. You tell somebody to let one thing go. Somebody could have been through trauma. Me, for instance, I've had so many people to say, let it go. And I agree, let it go. But I don't forget that somebody is evil. So I have to release it, whatever they done for me. But I have to get away from people who are abusive because I can't let it go every single day. Like, you can't keep stepping on my foot and say, okay, I'm going to let it go. But I know you're going to step on my foot tomorrow, and tomorrow I got to let it go. But the next day after that, I know you're going to step on my foot again, and I got to keep letting it go. Like, nah, they got to get off your foot. They got to get off your foot first. And then you need time to release the trauma that has caused from years and years of what they did. So eventually, yeah, you're going to have to let it go. Forgiveness of a person makes no sense to me because it's not about the person. It's about releasing. I don't like the word forgiveness and the way it's used. It's not about another person. It's not about another person because you can't remember everything that ever happened to you. I made a video on my Journey into Highest Potential page talking about that. You got several lifetimes, several incarnations and stuff that you might have blocked out as a child that is things that is going on that's creating your reality from stuff that's happened to you as a child. And it's like, well, that you might not even be consciously aware of, but it still affects your life even though you're not consciously aware of it. So that means that if you're not consciously aware of something that somebody did to you, then you are not holding a grudge against that person, because you're not consciously aware of what they did to you. But what they did to you is still affecting your life. So it's not about consciously holding on to something. It's what's going on in the subconscious, even when you're not aware. Even the movies that you watch is creating a reality for you, because the subconscious accepts everything. But the point I'm making is, I don't want to go into that. I made a video about this forgive and forget and what forgiveness is. It's not about focusing on a person. Because if you focus on the person and forgiving them, then you got to remember billions of years of things that happen. You can't do that. It's not possible. It's not in your conscious awareness. So it has nothing to do with that. But I made a video about that on my Journey into Highest Potential page. But let me get back to it. Here's why I say release blackness, because in one breath you have so-called black people that tell you, baby, you gotta release it. You just can't hold on to it. You can't hold on to it. You will get swallowed. It will eat you alive. You can't. You gotta release it. You gotta let it go. You gotta let it go. They love to say forgive, though. They say forgive more than anybody I know. They use the word forgive. But they want to hold on to that slavery, don't they? They want to hold on to that slavery. They want to hold on to struggle. And the minute you, as a brown person or a so-called black person, decide, I don't want to hold on to this anymore, I want to free myself from this identity, you are wrong. You got self-hate. You're a sellout, and it's time to get your NIGGA wake-up call. That's what they'll say to you. So they say you got to free yourself from all the pain and hurt that you've been through in your life. You got to free yourself from it. But then as a so-called black person, you're really not free because you're black. Make it make sense. If you're going to free yourself and release all the trauma that had happened to you as a child, then why can't you release the history you think is your history? You don't even know if it's yours. You're identifying with something that you might not know is real. You're identifying with the story that's given to you that may and may not be true, and you identify with it and call it your struggle. But something that really you know for sure happened to you, you're told to let it go. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. And even if it did happen to you, the same way you release that childhood trauma so it doesn't eat you alive is the same way you release the struggle. Don't hold on to the struggle, release it. This is what I'm talking about. Black people want to identify with struggle. When I hear about, before they were called black people, when they were called colored or whatever they were before, and just thriving, they had their problems, but one thing most of them did not do is identify with the struggle. I was looking at a documentary of the middle class in Los Angeles, and it was in the 1960s. Middle upper class, the black middle class in Los Angeles in the 60s. Oh, I don't know if it was Los Angeles, but anyway, it was in the 60s. A lot of them did not know what you hear black Americans saying today. A lot of them did not identify with that narrative. See what I'm saying? Seems like it wasn't until you were called black that you had to identify with the struggle, when really it seems like you should have more freedom than even back then. But that documentary, that they didn't identify with the struggle that a lot of black Americans are trying to identify with now. But the point I'm making is, before I go, is as a soul and as a spirit that's having a human experience, you should never say, well, we ain't free yet. We ain't free yet. So if you're going to continue to say you're not free, then who is going to set you free? If it's not going to be you to decide you're going to be free, who is going to set you free? Is being your blackness, your so-called blackness, is the reason why you're not free? Then are you going to be a slave forever? Are you going to be a slave forever? Why aren't you free? Who is holding you back? Why aren't you free? Because you are a spirit having a human experience, you also have a soul. I know some people don't of different complexions don't like the word soul. I've heard other people with a lot of skin complexions that make it seem like a soul is not a big deal. They just like to say we're spirits having a human experience. Okay? Uh, and then you hear more of the dark skinned people that know they have a soul, but that's different. The point I'm making is uh, if you realize you're a spirit having a human experience, and even if you know you're a soul, I'm trying to understand what's keeping you from being free. I mean, at this point, if I say that I'm having a problem with being free, at this point, I'm not completely free. It's a state of mind. At this point, I know for me, it's a state of mind because what's happening in the physical is a result of something that has already taken place in the non-physical. So if it's a result of something that has taken place in the non-physical, then who is behind it? Now, you got some religious people that's going to have their different reasons. So you might have some people that say we're not free because of Yahushua, because people who are religious, I'm not going to say religious, I'm just saying people who have different beliefs, might feel like they have been punished for their sins, and they have to go through this. God is punishing them, and it's the result of being rebellious towards a particular God, and they feel like they have to live this thing out, and so they just keep living it out until Yahushua comes back and save them and take them back to the promised land. That's fine if they got that belief. I'm not going to try to take that away from them. So if that person has that belief, that's different. But you have other people who are not Christians and who don't share those sentiments of the Hebrew Israelites, and they are not Christians. So they don't believe, they're not waiting on Jesus to come back. So for those, I wonder, why aren't you free then? What is keeping you from being free? Because if you're not a Christian, so you know you're not waiting on Jesus to come back, that's fine. Because some people believe that Jesus is more internal than external anyway. So some people believe that Jesus is in them, and some people believe that Jesus is outside of them. So you have some people feel like they're not free because they're waiting on the Jesus that they feel like that's outside of them. They're waiting on the outside person to come back to free them on the outside. And same thing go for the Hebrew Israelites. They're waiting on the outside person to free them on the outside. That's fine, because that's understandable. But it's like if you don't share those sentiments, those beliefs, then what are you holding on to? Why aren't you free? Why aren't you free yet? And who's keeping you from being free? If you know that you're just having a physical experience, then who is keeping you from being free? That's basically what I'm saying. And you mostly hear this from so-called black people saying that we're still not free. We're still not free. And then who is going to free you then? If you're still not free yet, who is responsible for freeing you? Because when you deal with childhood trauma or any kind of trauma, it don't have to be childhood, that's just an example. Any kind of trauma, you're expected to release and heal from it and free yourself from that trauma, from that experience. You're expected to do the work and go to therapy and whatever you need to do to free yourself from this thing so it doesn't hold you down. Totally get it. I totally get it. But at the same time, why are you expected as a so-called black person to hold on to a narrative of struggle? Because that's going to hold you down probably just as bad or worse than the childhood trauma or any other trauma that you want to hold on to. That's going to hold you down too. See what I'm saying? That's why I say let go of blackness. Let go of blackness it almost seems like it's you're gonna always be a slave being black. And eventually you wanna be free mentally, and for some reason the identity of blackness, you're not expected to be free mentally. You're not expected to be free mentally. Okay? But anyway, that's it, and I will talk to you later.